The Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast is an unscripted and free-flowing conversation that may touch on mature subjects. While the opinions are real, the research probably isn't, and we can't help that Atticus will probably talk about the Knicks.
And here we go.
He trucked dudes. It wasn't just in a preseason game. He did it pretty consistently. He left dudes saying, "What happened?"
You better put some respect on his name when we're talking about the champion, the Davion Clowney.
And I'm just going on eye test here, right? Like, I like the look of this coaching staff, you know?
All right, enough of this. Let's see what kind of shit we get into today.
Are you live?
Loy, it's all yours.
What? I just got a warning that this meeting being recorded.
Yeah, I'll trim that out when I get back home.
All right, no problem. Hold on one second. Let me just get the closing sentence here. There we go. Let me get the Audacity set up here. Test. Say something real quick.
All right, man.
There we go. All right, just give it a couple second pause and then go ahead and get started.
Back at Sunday mornings, easy like fantasy or football trash talk for real fans. Sunday morning podcast. I apologize for the right off the bat for my technical difficulties, but I'm going to do this one from the phone as I'm mobile. And we'll just get into some discussions, right? Like I was driving down to my undisclosed location and I was listening to ESPN and they were talking about it's funny. They had they were talking about a couple of things like, why did Carmelo Anthony get booed with the Denver Nuggets, right? And it got me thinking, right? Like Philly likes to boo people, but I don't think we booed Reggie White when he left, and came back to Philly, right? Like I don't think that we ever booed him, right? We boo players when they're not doing well, right? And they're playing for our team. But like as far as somebody leaving and going to another team, I can't imagine. I don't recall anybody with the Birds that they booed Carmelo Anthony 10 years later, no doubt, right? Like he hasn't played for Denver in 10 years and they booed him. So got me thinking, if Baker Mayfield left the Cleveland Browns and went to play for the Baltimore Ravens and he came back to Cleveland Browns Stadium, is he getting booed?
Maybe. I mean, Cleveland's more likely to throw something at him, right? Like that's kind of our thing. We throw stuff. We don't necessarily boo. I think it's harder to boo in football just because the spotlight's not on one player. Like we booed the crap out of LeBron James when he left for the Heat and came back, right? But that's also, in basketball, the guy's dribbling the ball. He's highlighted. It's harder to boo like a defensive end, right? Because when you're going to boo, when are you going to specifically be able to boo him among everyone else that's on the field, unless he happens to get a bunch of sacks and then you boo him. But would the fans boo Baker Mayfield? I think it would depend on what the circumstances under which he left. Like if he, takes us to let's say the AFC Championship game this year, loses by 3 points and then says, "Okay, I'm out. I'm going to Baltimore." Yeah, I could see a jersey burning or something in his future, but I think in football, just in general, the way the game is, it's a lot harder to just boo somebody like it is, say, in basketball.
All right.
I mean, who are we booing in Philly? Is there anyone even you guys would care to boo? You gonna boo Wentz if he comes back? When he comes back? If he comes back?
They're not going to boo Wentz. They might. They might boo Wentz. Don't mind the planes overhead.
We're real disclosed that are discreet today, are we? What we got some tropical things behind you. Where are you on location? Inquiring minds want to know.
I'm in Key West, right? I might as well introduce my my surprise guest here today. You know, the one and only Andy Atkinson.
Hey, what's up, Chris? What's up, Football Trash Talk?
Now, I would like to point out that both of you gentlemen either live in Florida or are visiting Florida. No one's come to see me. Both of you.
I tried to call you. You were too busy.
I was not busy. You texted me after you already passed Orlando, and you're like, "Oh, by the way, I just drove through Orlando."
No, I was in Lake Mary. I was right there.
And I was like, "Hey, I can come meet up." You're like, "No, man, I'll come see you on the way back." Nothing.
You said meet up in like 6 hours, dude. I got, you know.
He texted me it was the middle of the workday, and he's like, "Yeah, what are you doing right now?" I'm like, you know, actually, I think I was at lunch when you messaged me, but I think I was at a sports bar actually. So that's how busy I was.
I'd just like to mention that you're not in South Beach, let alone Key West. So,
well, I'm in Orlando though. There's plenty of good reasons to come to Orlando. We've built beaches here. So anyway, did you still want to do fantasy football this week? Because that's what I have keyed up on our fun fact of the week is fantasy football related. Because you let us believe we're doing fantasy football this week.
Well, and then this came about, so we can talk fantasy. We can talk a couple other things. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the sports world other than football. But I also found it funny on my drive in. Gary Player was the guest on ESPN's radio show this morning, and he basically fat shamed Myron Metcalf, and he told him that he had dick too, basically, right? And I was like, they just did that on live radio, without a doubt. Told him to put the fucking cheeseburger down. It's hilarious.
You know, it's funny. I feel like in general, a lot of stuff kind of slides by on radio that doesn't get out there on, because I know one time, because I just happened to have a Facebook status about it. Charles Barkley said, I forget what radio show I was listening to, but he was the guest speaker. I think it had something to do with the finals. Anyway, Charles Barkley was on there, and he mentioned something about women don't need to wear wristwatches because there's like clocks on the stove or something like that. And I'm like, can he say that? Is he allowed to say that on radio? What is going on right now? And I just think it shows that, you know, no one listens to radio, so at least not enough to where there's an outrage. So yeah. Is there anyone on the Birds that you guys think needs to lose some weight? We want to fat shame any of the Eagles?
No, but I did see a picture. I don't know if you saw it. There's an offensive lineman on the Broncos. He's got this huge belly, and he was saying like, "Bring it on." And did you see that, buddy?
Yeah, no, I saw that. There's actually a meme out there now where it's got him, and I think it's like NFL is great because it's the only place for a guy that looks like this, and it's got the Denver Broncos guy with his, you know, his huge butt hanging out of his jersey, and it's got a picture of him next to DJ Metcalf, who's like, you know, who's a brick house, and they're like, it's the only sport where these two guys can both play the same game. And then I forget, and then I think it had a picture of Mac Jones, and I think Cam Newton, and it's like, and these two guys play the same position. So yeah. So I mean, maybe I got a shot. I don't have any abdominal muscle, but maybe I could get out there and I could play something. I could, you know, special teamer. I could kick field goals. We could do that.
Yeah, kicker.
I mean, I won't be any Pat McAfee, but you know. So you know what? I've heard Lloyd talk a lot about the Eagles. What's your take on the Eagles season this year, Andy?
Well, you know, if you talked to me a few weeks ago, I would say it's another 4-win season, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think the division has improved that much, and I feel like with some of the additions that the Eagles have made, nothing too splashy or flashy, but I think they got a couple guys on defensive rotation, not only on the defensive line, but at the linebacker position and the safety position specifically. And so I think their defense is going to be as good, maybe even a little better. And I think the offense has to be better than last year because they were woefully pathetic. So I'm cautiously optimistic about maybe a 500 season. I don't like the schedule in the beginning of the year. The first 4 or 5 games look pretty rough on paper, but then again, it's on paper, so you never really know how those teams are going to look once the season starts. It's only late May or June or whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, I like the additions with Harris as a safety. I think he's a top 10 safety. Eric Wilson at linebacker, I think he improves their linebacker. They've always been really terrible at that linebacker position, so that's an upgrade. Even though it's not a major upgrade, it's still an upgrade. And then the Kerrigan signing, I don't know what he has left in the tank, but I feel like he has something in terms of being a rotational defensive lineman. And they just drafted Milton Williams out of the Louisiana Tech, 3rd-round pick. I think that he'll get some time in a rotation. And Josh Sweat's going to be a year better. Their starters, I mean, with Graham, Barnett, Cox, and Hargrave, I mean, they're formidable on the defensive line. So the Eagles' issues on defense have always been in the linebacker and the defensive backfield. I think they made some improvements, not a lot. And don't forget, June 1st is right around the corner. Look for the Eagles to go out and get that second corner to play opposite of Darius Slay. So even though, I mean, 3-4 weeks ago, I was looking at four wins, 5 wins. I'm looking at around 500 now, and maybe it's just a little too optimistic as an Eagles fan, but also the thing that's always got me right now is there's too many question marks in terms of the head coach. You don't know what you're going to get. You could get anything from A to Z. He could have some early success because he's new and nobody really has a book on him per se. So he could have some early success, similar to the way that Chip Kelly had early success. But you don't know. He could be garbage or he could be gold. And then the other big question mark, of course, is Jalen Hurts. You don't know. I kind of throw out last season because there's so much turmoil that has come to light, and the locker room was a mess, and they kind of threw him into a situation that tons of injuries on the offensive line. But, you know, Miles Sanders is a year better. Rieger's a year better. I think Devontae Smith is going to make a big impact on the offense, even though as a rookie. I think with those 2 speedsters on the outside, it's going to open up the middle of the field a little bit more. You're going to see less double teams on Goddard and Sanders. And basically, if you think about it, last year, if you're a defensive coordinator, all you needed to do is stop Sanders, and you had no threats really. So you could go man to man, and you know. So I think this year's going to look a little different. Like I said, I don't think the division is so overwhelming. If you had to pick a favorite in the NFC East, I think it'd be difficult to say. There's no overwhelming favorite, I guess. Although on paper, it looks like all 3 teams are better than the Eagles.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to play the games and you see how it all shakes out. I mean, I'm excited for the season. I mean, I really am. I'm excited to see how Sirianni does. I'm excited to see how the new defensive coordinator does. And I'm really excited to see what Jalen Hurts has got, because it's like it's a flyer almost, because if he doesn't do well, you got those 3 firsts sitting there next year. You can go and get yourself a quarterback. It might not even be through the draft, by the way. There's been a lot of rumors about Deshaun Watson. If he can straighten out his legal troubles, the Eagles might go and get him. I don't know. A lot of rumors, but we'll see. But Jalen Hurts kind of if he plays great, awesome. If he doesn't, then the Eagles are in a position where they can make a move.
So, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and side with the bird that's been laughing at you in the background the whole time. I still think
time out. Planes overhead. I can't hear you.
We good? Ready for my counter analysis? No, you know what's interesting?
Yeah.
I'll tie it into fantasy just because we were saying one of the things I have noticed is Jalen Hurts is he's not going early, but he is getting he's one of the quarterbacks predicted to get over 300 fantasy points. So that puts him, he's not predicted to get that many fewer points than Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, who are leading the pack. He's predicted to get ahead of quarterbacks such as Ben Roethlisberger, which isn't saying much at this point, but there's some big names he's projected to get. I want to say he's got the 6th most projected points right now. Now, I don't know exactly what they're basing that on. Maybe a lot of running yards, but
yeah,
and touchdowns.
And also, you think that would be an element of, because now I don't I don't play fantasy like you guys do, but do you think that might be an element of the experts may think that the Eagles are going to be down 2 touchdowns at halftime every game, and they're going to have to throw the ball. So he's going to rack up those garbage time yards, if you will.
It could be. I tend to think though that at least it seems to be when there's a good dual threat quarterback, they seem to play above like what you see them do on the field versus what they score in fantasy don't seem to necessarily correlate, because I think generally speaking, especially ESPN tends to heavily overrate quarterbacks that can run. They tend to seem to get a lot more projected points than what you would think just looking at the team on paper. You got any thoughts on that, Loy? Are you taking what round are you drafting Hurts in, Loy?
I mean, I think Hurts
first overall pick.
without a doubt, man. I'm taking him at the turn. I think he's a sneaky late round pick in the draft, man, because I don't think anybody's paying attention to him fantasy wise. There's a lot of other big name quarterbacks. I mean, every mock draft I've done, it's been 8, 9, 10 that he gets scooped up
In the round, you mean?
Yeah. So it's but I think that like Andy said, last year's an anomaly, right? You can't really gauge what Jalen Hurts is going to be like after last year. I go back to his senior year in college. I mean, his numbers were spectacular.
Against good competition.
Yeah, and he was on point with numbers like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, coming out of that kind of style offense. He had 30 touchdowns passing and 20 rushing. That's insane. It's insane. So he's a dual threat. I think the field is more wide open with the speedsters. I think the key to the Eagles offensively is obviously their line, right? Their line has been decimated for the last, even the Super Bowl year.
They seem like they're relatively healthy going into the season. Now, that could change in a heartbeat, as we all know. But, they've addressed it somewhat. I mean, they went out and got the guy from the Colts who's kind of a swing tackle. It's going to be a backup because if Lane Johnson is healthy, he'll play the right side. That's a no-brainer. But on the left side, the left tackle position, you got Matilda and Andre Dillard kind of battle on that left tackle position. Now, one of them's going to win the job, and the other one is going to be a rotational backup. And then with this guy from Indianapolis, I kind of looked him up a little bit. Or was he from the Titans or Indy maybe?
He was from Indy.
Indy. I don't know, but I'm drawing a blank on his name. But I mean, he was the 3rd or 4th round pick, so he wasn't exactly like a scrub coming out of college. Yeah. But he might just again, it's just kind of maybe a depth kind of a signing. But you're getting Brandon Brooks back on the line, a healthy Brooks, and Kelsey's, Kelsey's Kelsey. So
Kelsey's ready to win, man. He's like, there's no reason that we're in transition and we can't win. That's what Kelsey said. Kelsey's the leader in that locker room, and Jalen's saying all the right shit.
Yeah.
The Eagles aren't an anomaly this year, man. It's not going to surprise me if they win 5 games, and it won't surprise me if they play 500. Well, there is no more 500, so
7 or 8 or 9 wins.
8 or 9 wins.
7, 8, 9. I mean,
man, you put Michael Loy in the sun for a week, and suddenly he goes from like maybe 5 wins to hey, we're outside playoff contenders.
We're going to the Super Bowl, man.
Super Bowl, man. Super Bowl.
Jalen Hurts, big.
It's all house money this year, man. That's all I know. It's all house money.
So, Andy, I want to get your reaction to this statement. The Browns are Super Bowl contenders. How does that make you feel?
Hey, it makes me feel good that you Browns fans are having a good time. It's actually funny because this morning I was kind of looking around a little bit, and I didn't know that you guys signed Malik Jackson either for the inside. I like some of the pieces, even though you guys lost 2 defensive linemen and got a couple more with Clowney and Jackson. So it'll be the same there. I don't follow the Browns as closely as you, obviously. But I guess, if you look at the division, I think, them and the Ravens are going to be battling it out. And I mean, Super Bowl contenders. I guess. I don't know, man.
I mean, it was 57 years for the Eagles, right? Till they won their Super Bowl. You're in year 57, man. So who knows?
Oh yeah, 57 is the magic number.
It's like the one fact that Michael White figured out this week, and I keep hearing about 57 years. So the other, I know this is like a huge pivot to the left, but there's a little signing by my dad's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, this past week. How do you guys see Tim Tebow playing out at tight end? And do you think it's actually a serious move or just there to sell jerseys? Because I believe he is the number one jersey right now in the NFL being sold. So what's your guys' take on Tebow to the Jaguars?
That's an Urban Meyers move, man.
Yeah.
That's Urban Meyers doing whatever the fuck he wants, right? Reality-wise, he hasn't played football for 8 years. 8, right? And he's 30. What is he? 34? Going to be 35? One of those?
No.
Yeah. I think he's 32. I think he's a little bit younger, but
if I'm a tight end trying to pick that team, I'm pissed, and I'm playing way harder.
Well, it's funny because I lived in Denver during the Tebow era when he was a quarterback in Denver, and like people love him. He's just kind of magnetic in that way. And but then now years have gone by, so kind of what you said, Mike. Like he comes into that locker room. I don't think he carries the same cachet as he once did. If it was 8 or 10 years ago, and here's my thing: why didn't he try to be a tight end from the jump? Like he could have been. I think he was a decent player coming out of college.
He's a good athlete.
Yeah, I mean, he had all the tools. I mean, he could have switched to tight end as a rookie, and he could have had some productive years in his 20s. But I think I kind of think it's a jersey grab, Chris. I think it's kind of a publicity stunt. He's a Florida native. I don't think he could make other teams around the NFL. If it wasn't Jacksonville, it was probably nobody. I don't know for sure, but that's my guess. But I think that people in Florida love the guy, as you know. Like they're all about Tebow, more Tebow, more Tebow, more Tebow. But I think some of the guys in the locker room are going to be like, get the hell out of here, man. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, he's very he's kind of contagious in his go get him attitude. So it might be. And also there's another thing that I was thinking about is that they got Trevor Lawrence, right? He's got a lot of pressure on him. He's his rookie quarterback, number 1 overall pick, and a bad team. And at the very least, Tebow could offer maybe some coaching advice, maybe some life advice about his acclimation to the NFL as a star, somebody that everybody wants to be around, everybody wants to talk to. It can be overwhelming for some 21-year-old kids, and I think Tebow, at the very least, could provide some mentorship to the young QB. So that's maybe his second or third quality that he could offer to a team, but I think it shouldn't go unnoticed.
Which I get. I just feel like you could, bring him on as a consultant if that's what. I don't know if you signed the dude to a tight end contract.
Yeah,
but just to speak about to what you said about them loving here in Florida. So I don't know if the team is still around. I know they went away for a little bit. I think they might have come back under different ownership. But here in Orlando, we have the Orlando Predators, which is an arena league team. And after Tebow got cut from the Patriots back in 2014 or whenever that was, there was rumors that he was going to come play quarterback for the Arena League Orlando Predators. So much so that at one of the games, they did a silent auction for a signed Orlando Predator Tim Tebow jersey. And the thing raised like something ridiculous, like $26,000. Like it was insane the amount of money that someone paid for an Orlando Predators jersey just because it said Tebow and had his signature. So yeah, people here in Florida, like I've never seen such devotion to a guy that like he's a good dude. It's like he's done anything wrong. It's crazy to me. Like he could do anything he wanted at this point here in Florida and it would do well. So I don't understand
getting drafted in fantasy. I don't think he's going to get drafted by anybody.
You don't think he's a late 16th round pick? Mr. Irrelevant.
On a whim.
I mean, here's the thing: at the tight end position, is he really going to be able to block an edge rusher? That's he doesn't have blocking techniques like that's. It's kind of just because he's a great athlete doesn't mean that these guys. I mean, he's going to go up against professional defensive linemen that I don't think that he has blocking technique. I don't think he's a first down tight end. Maybe he's situational, maybe some gadget plays, maybe line him up in the backfield and it's a decoy or something, but I don't see him making a big impact on the field.
Philly special could make showing in Jacksonville.
You could use some gadget plays, little reverse pass, the guy can throw the ball. So if he comes out in the 3rd down and 5 and he comes out, he's lined up in the backfield, defense has to pay attention to him. Maybe it's a gadget, maybe it's a decoy, but I don't really see him having a big impact on the field.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like a player like Tebow, especially at this point in his career, considering he's 32 to 35, however old he is, and he's never played tight end before, and now he's just kind of getting thrown. Obviously, if he does see the field, it's going to be some sort of gimmick thing. So my question to you, and obviously all time, this isn't even a debate, right? But just this season alone, Gronk or Tebow, who do you think scores more fantasy points? Because Gronk, we're not talking Gronk 2007. We're talking Gronk 2021-22, where
Gronk scores more fantasy points, hands down.
Yeah, I'd say like 4 times more. I don't think Tebow's even going to – I mean –
I don't know if he's even going to make the team.
He might not even make the team. But I'm like you, Chris. I think they should have signed him. If I was Jacksonville and Urban Meyer, I would have brought him in as like a consultant or assistant
coach,
some way, quarterback's coach. Maybe not quarterback coach, but assistant quarterback coach or something. Like I don't know, like water boy. Just have him around.
Maybe the quarterback PA.
Yeah, just have him around.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like you can make up you can make up a. Yeah, I heard. Yeah, you can make up a position, just some sort of associate, whatever, and bring him in. So I don't know. It just seems odd at tight end. I mean, it could be you could bring him in at any position, right? You could bring him in at defensive end for as much as he's probably going to play tight end, right? So why specifically
linebacker,
fullback? Like, why not? Why stop there? Make him your backup place kicker. It doesn't really matter. So anyone in fantasy you see, like, I don't really want to talk about the first rounders. Everyone knows who they are. Like, there's no point in talking about Christian McCaffrey because unless you have the number 1 overall pick, you're probably not going to get him. But who's like, say a 3rd, 4th, 5th rounder, you think, someone that's going to slide that's going to potentially make a difference this year?
I mean, that's a tough call without me really letting go of my entire draft strategy. But, there's I think it gets wonky after pick 5, depending on what your strategy is, depending on what do you go running back? Do you go running back, wide receiver? Kelsey's going way early in every single mock draft that I've done. They don't have picks going high at all. Like they got it, every mock draft I've done is going 5th round, and he's supposed to be the end all be all new age tight end, right? Like
I got picks early
in the same arena as Kelsey and Kittles and even Waller, right? So, but after those 3, they don't really. It really dies off, right? So, if Pitts is there at 4, do you take him? I don't know.
Well, especially if Jones gets traded, then Pitts' stock goes up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, for that reason, Julio Jones is one of my sleepers. Right now it's a little hard to tell just because rumors are he's not going to get traded until June. So this will, I think he's going to come more alive in drafts, in mock drafts at least once he gets traded. But right now he's like going in like the 5th, 6th round. I think that's a steal for Julio Jones, even if he stays on the Falcons, just because last year he was a top 5 receiver, if I'm not mistaken. So why he suddenly is all the way down there, even with the addition of Pitts, I don't see Pitts taking away all of his productivity. And even if he slips a little bit, he's not the 45th best player in the draft. The other one I like, and this would be more of a late round, depending on how the team shakes out, I like AJ Green on the Cardinals. I think that's a late round pick. I see him going 10th, 11th round. That could pay dividends, especially if one of your top receivers gets injured.
Big question is his health. Another one that's good is Lockett. Like, no one pays attention to Lockett or in early rounds. He's not, but he produces year in and year out. Like, he's a solid fantasy pick. And Russell Wilson's beautiful moon ball is fucking like it's to Lockett all the time. Like, so he's good for a big play. He's consistent, 8, 9, 10 catches a game and a touchdown. I don't know why he always slips, but he does.
What about his wide receiver, like rushing yards too, for the Jets?
They do, yeah.
Yeah. Because he's just good for Lockett gets 1 or 2 jet sweeps a game. They try to work that in. I didn't know if rushing yards count or whatever. Like,
yeah,
maybe
count. What makes Lockett hard is he feels very streaky because like Lockett is very feast or famine, and I think that's why he tends to slide out. Like, yeah, he'll get 8 catches a game, right? He'll get 8, 9 targets a game, maybe 7, 8 catches. But like, what happens is he doesn't get anything the first half, or he'll get like 1 or 2 attempts in the first half, and he'll like finish the first half with like 2 catches for 16 yards, and and something like that. And you're like, crap. And then like he's and a lot of people don't like that. It's nerve wracking watching it, especially when like being in Seattle, he's usually one of your last players to play. So you're hoping to win a game with him, and he goes the first 3 quarters and only gets like 3 passes thrown his way for 30 something yards. You're going, what the hell, man? And then suddenly he gets a 50-yard TD but you hate relying on the 50-yard TD pass to make your fantasy day. And that's what I think makes he's not consistent like Devontae Adams, and I know that's like a completely different tier of receiver I'm comparing him to, but he's the first name off my head where if I plugged Devontae Adams in, I know I'm going to see 7 to 10 fantasy points per quarter every game. Where Lockett, you're going to see nothing, and then suddenly he's going to score 15 in the fourth in the last 3 minutes. Or at least that's the hope.
Yeah, I agree. Another sneaky player, though, to mention would be, since you mentioned the Broncos earlier, KJ Hamler, because somebody just get hurt on the Broncos? I forget which one, but somebody did. One of their wide receivers. So, and he's end around, jet sweep, catch the ball. He's super quick. And I think he's their return guy.
See, the interesting thing about the Broncos would be if they end up with Aaron Rodgers, which seems to be the leading rumor right now, which probably means he'll be on the Raiders, but let's just assume it's the Broncos for right now. That, who develops chemistry with Aaron Rodgers the quickest, right? And who becomes his favorite target there in Denver, that guy's obviously going to pay major dividends. Because I want to say who'd you say the best fantasy receiver on their team is right now?
It's Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, Courtland Sutton. But do they, is he number one after Rodgers gets there? You don't know. And that's that there's a couple X factors with these different teams. It's interesting it's funny for as long as I've waited for Browns to have relevant fantasy players. Like, we have a good team, but none of our players you're like outside of Chubb, but even he splits time with Hunt. So it's like we have a lot of players that makes it hard to pick Browns, which is frustrating because as a Browns fan, I always want to pick one, but you can never justify them in positions like where you would typically draft Landry, for example. You have Michael Gallup. You have different players around that go around him that, I love Juice Landry, but I love him on my team, but in my fantasy team, I'd rather have Michael Gallup. So, of course, yeah. I'm on the record of wanting to trade OBJ for Gallup in a pick every year. So maybe it's just, I got eyes for Michael Gallup in general. Who knows?
I think we should turn the conversation back to the Eagles. And I have a question for you, Chris. As somebody that's not an Eagles fan, what do you think is going to happen to Zach Ertz? There's a big elephant in the room with Ertz. He's made his intentions clear to the Eagles he wants out. Now he's still under contract for next year. It's his last year of his contract, which he renegotiated, I think, in like 2018 or something. But anyway, he's due a lot of money on his last year of his deal this upcoming year. But he's made it clear to the Eagles he wants out. How do you see that situation working itself out?
So I think that's rough because I think on a 1-year deal with someone like Ertz who's owed a lot of money, that's like a draft day deal. You trade him for picks, right? Like I feel like it's hard because so waiting till after June 1st doesn't help your salary cap situation because, like you said, he's only got 1 year left. I really don't know. Like maybe like I know later. I feel like at this point he's not gonna get traded before the beginning of the season. I feel like maybe I could see something like maybe if Aaron Rodgers does end up on the Broncos, maybe the Broncos trade to get him a tight end over Fant. Something like that gives the Eagles a young tight end who was, ballyhooed a couple of years ago. He had a lot of pomp and circumstance coming out. And that gives them a veteran presence who's been to the Super Bowl on that team. And it gives, a safety valve for someone like that. But I could see him going to a team that, maybe an injury happens before week 6 or something like that. But right now, because he's only got 1 year on his contract and a lot of money, at this point, it's going to be hard for a team to justify him under the salary cap. That he's gonna that the teams that can fit him under the salary cap are probably not teams once his contract is done, he's going to want to stay at, right? So you're kind of eliminating a lot of people. I think the best thing for him is going to be, if Aaron Rodgers moves or, a team like maybe even Seattle decides they need a veteran tight end presence.
Well, I think, and I agree with almost everything you said. And that last year of his deal, he has made it clear he doesn't want to renegotiate his contract right away. Obviously, I think Indianapolis is a landing spot that most people, it's kind of logical to go see Carson and Frank Reich again. But the Eagles have been asking kind of a high price for him. He's obviously on the market. They're taking calls. They're looking for like a 3rd round, maybe a 4th round pick, and nobody's even biting on that yet. But I mean, I had this, maybe a little bit of a dream or an optimism that with the new coaching staff, maybe they could talk to him and be like, hey, we got this brand new thing coming. Why don't you just stay 1 more year? But I think that he's done there. And so they're going to get into a situation where if they release him, they can release him. But I think that they're eager to get a team that's desperate for a tight end. And you might be right. They might try to, but I think if they don't trade him and the season approaches as we get closer and closer to the season, I mean, he might be one of these guys. It's like, he hasn't reported for any of the voluntary training camps or anything. So he's kind of made it clear he doesn't want to be part of the Eagles, which is okay. He's a Peterson guy. He's a Wentz guy. And he feels like he doesn't want to be there anymore, that's fine. Whatever, that's his decision. But with the Eagles, I feel like they got to get something for him. Then now he's under contract. I mean, if they just release him, it's almost like, they might be able to trade him for a pick or maybe even another player that they could do.
Like the Arizona trade from Hicks just makes
sense.
A lot of sense to me, right? Arizona drafted a linebacker.
They want Hicks out.
Right. They don't have the cap room for Hicks. They need a tight end. We would love to have Hicks back, I think. Right.
Yeah.
He was one of my favorite linebackers, and linebackers have not been the Eagles' strong suit in years.
And Eric Wilson could play the outside. He's done it. He's a hybrid linebacker.
So if they can make a trade with Arizona, that would make the most sense to me. For both teams.
I think it's just hard because Ertz is essentially getting number 1 tight end money, obviously. But most of the teams that would want him, he's not going to be the number 1 tight end. Like, I can make a case that he makes sense to go to Cleveland, but he's not going to be the number 1 tight end in Cleveland, and they're not going to pay that kind of money to the
Indianapolis
tight end. Indianapolis is the only team that we've talked about because, I could see him. I think he fits on the 49ers, but he's not going to start. He's not going to be number 1 over Kittles, and they're already paying a ton of money to Kittles. He even makes sense. He even makes sense in Baltimore in my opinion. But they already have is it Mark Andrews?
Mark
Whatever.
Andrews.
Yeah, they already have Mark. They already have him. So all the teams I could see running that could use a good second tight end don't want a tight end that they're paying starting, number one tight end money to. So unless he's willing to now, maybe he's not willing to renegotiate with the Eagles. And if he's like, yeah, but if you trade me to XYZ team, I'll renegotiate with them. That could be a saving grace. But as it stands right now, the contract's kind of the albatross in the room because any team that I feel like is a tight end away doesn't have the cap space to pay the money he's due.
I'm really interested to see how that works itself out because he's pushing to get out of there, and yet the Eagles can't find a trade partner because they're looking for a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick, and teams are like, no, thank you, we're going to wait. But again, as the season approaches, I mean, it's coming to a head, so to speak, where they're going to have to. If they can't find a trade partner, they're going to have to release him because you can't have a guy that's under contract that's going to just, be doing sit up.
Yeah,
he's not playing.
I mean, maybe one of those, conditional situations. Like we'll give you a conditional 5th that turns into a 4th if he plays so many snaps or catches so many balls or whatever. Like maybe that's the thing that'll get it done. But yeah, I can't. If he had multiple years and had a more reasonable contract, I could see you guys getting a 3rd form all day. But a 1-year contract at kind of higher than needed money, and he's not renegotiating. That's kind of iffy. So he's kind of painted himself into a hard corner if he's not willing to negotiate.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that he was hurt last year, so he don't even have a solid year under his belt.
How old is he? How old's Ertz? He's in his 30s, right?
Getting older.
31.
Yeah, around there.
And everything I've read has Dallas Goedert rated well above Zach Ertz right now.
Oh yeah, Goddard's good tight end. I'm not even worried about it. I'm not really worried about not having Ertz on the team. Although my contention is that you got to get something for him. I mean, something. It's not like if you just release him, I feel like that's a waste. Like you got to. I mean, he's a valuable player to another team, and maybe not under the contract as Chris mentioned, but I think it's $5 million or something. So there's got to be some teams that have a little room that could. And by the way, he's at veteran leadership qualities. Maybe you're a team that has a young tight end, or you want to add a guy with some veteran leadership. I
think you just kind of touched on it. If I'm Ertz, the best situation for me is the Eagles just release me, and then I go to Atlanta for a year. I go to an offense happy team for a year, and I get to mentor Pitts a little bit, and then then I go for one last big contract for my age and everything the year after. But
yeah, it should be interesting the way that plays out. That's one of the things I'm really looking, especially after June 1st, because everything changes in about a week here.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wish I understood more about the salary cap. So I understood why exactly that is. I just know that means teams can spread out salaries.
It's all cap money. It's all cap money. June 1st, like Julio Jones in Atlanta. That's why they're not. You'll see things start to heat up after June 1st because you're talking about a $20 million cap hit. And June 1st, it's one of those financial markers in the NFL about caps and free agencies and all that. If you release a guy before June 1st or after June 1st, as a protection of the players almost. Players union, kind of created that one. But after June 1st, that's why the Eagles, I'm not worried about people are saying about their second corner. And they signed Josiah, who's the guy they just got from Jacksonville, the kid from Michigan State?
Smith?
No, the corner, Josiah. Anyway, they traded for a corner from Jacksonville, and he's basically a slot corner. He's like 5'9", 185. He's very small, but he's quick as hell, and they put him in the slot. Another piece for the nickel and dime package. Is not a starter, but he's not the answer for cornerback 2 to the Eagles. But here comes June 1st, and there's going to be 4 or 5 of these guys that are going to be available So I think in the first maybe 8 or 10 days of next week, and in the first 8 or 10 days of June, you're going to see the Eagles sign 1 or 2 more of these. Not big splashes. Nobody, not any Pro Bowl corners, but they'll get a couple more guys to solidify the defensive backfield, and not to mention Vontae Maddox and what's the guy LeBron? Is it Wallace? But anyway, they got a couple of young
Wallace out of
Clemson. Yeah, out of Clemson. Yeah, so they got a couple of young guys that should be a year better, and maybe one of them takes that next step.
Who's that other one?
They had like 3 or 4. I mean, they were starting guys like I thought it was I'm drawing blank on names today, but
they drafted.
Yeah, they got a couple young corners. They got a couple young guys in the defensive backfield that if they can add one more guy after June 1st to go with Slay and Harris as a safety, I don't think they're going to be terrible in the defensive. But they've always been terrible, and everybody knows the Eagles' defensive backfield is terrible. So if they could just be average, it would be a huge improvement there. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Speaking of the beginning of June, just so you guys are aware, you have exactly 12 shopping days until my birthday. So, just saying, just throwing it out there, just as a little aside.
That Bowl hat, but I don't think there is one.
AFC champs? No, there's not one of those either.
No.
AFC, no. I mean, you could give me the NFC East champs. That'd be.
I know you say you could, but there's no way to prove it, man. Who knows? So how about this? Chris, do you think there's a odds-on favorite in the NFC East? Just because I kind of want to know what people are thinking that aren't,
For me right now, for me right now, we've talked about it a couple podcasts ago. For me, it's a coin flip between Washington and Dallas. Just because it's defense versus offense. That you could tell me either of those teams are going to win it and make good arguments for either one. I'm more inclined to say Washington just because they won it last year, and I didn't see them do anything to make me, to suddenly make me think, okay, they're going to be worse this year or not. They didn't. I think they improved. I think they're going to have a better offense, even though Fitzpatrick is prone to turning it over. He's also prone to 5 touchdown games, and he's got a defense that can
be anything.
And he's got a defense that can bail him out. Now, do I think they're going to make a ton of noise in the playoffs? No, but if I had to pick a team today to win the East, gun to my head, I'd have to say Washington right now because I haven't seen anything to make me think another team is good enough to knock them off. I see it playing out right now. I see Washington, Dallas, Giants, and then Eagles. I will say competitively, I do think it's going to be a better league. I do think, Washington's not going to get in because someone's going to win someone won the East, so therefore they get in. I think it's going to be definitely more of a, they're going to be like, okay, they're definitely a playoff team. Like they're going to be worthy of a home playoff game. They'll be 10-7 somewhere around there. But yeah, as of right now, Washington, if I had to pick a team, but Dallas could easily win it and I wouldn't be shocked. So
the thing with me is about Dallas is that I think their offense is, is going to be great. Even though I hate Dallas, but I'm looking, they look like they're going to score some points. Now, how about their defense, though? Their defense was historically bad. So what are they going to try to win games 40-39? It's like, I mean,
right. Well, and that's the rub. That's why I go with Washington because I feel Washington's hands down obviously got the better defense. And I think a stellar defense with above average offense, which is what I'd say Washington has, is better than a stellar offense and a mediocre defense. Like I said, is Dallas, it wouldn't shock me if they did. I think it would be, but if Dallas were to win it, I think, it's going to be closer to a 500 record. For some reason, the wheels just fell off in Washington.
How many wins gets the NFC East title? 9, 10?
I think at least 10, just because there's the extra game.
10-7 gets the East crown.
Yeah.
9-8, 10-7. Yeah, somewhere in there. If that, I think if Dallas wins, it's going to be lower. Just because that Dallas is going to have to just outgun people, and that I mean, we've seen it happen. The Rams, they did that one year. There have been teams that have done that, but then they get whacked in the playoffs. But then again, they were putting up. I mean, Dak before he got hurt was putting up 560 yards a game or something like that, and they were one in whatever. So,
Well, I know I'm excited for the football season.
I'm stoked for football.
I wish it started tomorrow. I'm like, let's go. Even though my Sixers are coming on right now, I think.
Sixers are on now, and
they got the
Lakers
1 o'clock
play at
game.
3:30, and then the Knicks play later.
Let's check in a Sixers score real quick because we need to know these things. But yeah, this is a football podcast.
We talk about everything. Obviously, we like to give out.
Talk about golf. So Phil Mickelson's going for a major today
at 50.
That's incredible.
51.
Not yet. He's got one more round to go.
Is he in the lead? I honestly don't follow.
Yeah, he's the leader going into the last round. So he's got a Brooks Koepka, right? He's paired with him on the final round. So it should be interesting to see what happens there. But
what's that Lakers score? What's that?
All right, it's early. Philadelphia's up by 9 in the first quarter against Washington.
It's funny. It's funny. Have you guys ever heard of Touch of Modern? It's like kind of like an online purchasing site. They do these specialized watches. Is they're kind of one of the things they always do. And I got an ad to it said just in time for playoffs, and it was like NBA. It was like a Tissot watch, but it was like the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm like, yes, that's what I need.
Yeah, the Cavs.
They still have a basketball.
Cavs. They haven't.
Not for long. There's a lot of talk about them not being in Cleveland anymore. So I don't know where they would go, but Dan Gilbert's not the greatest owner. He just lucked in. He just lucked into the greatest basketball player of all time being born in Ohio. But anyway,
you want to do a question and answer period where I'm not allowed to say anything, but you just either get the bread or the grain, all right? You can say whatever you want on it. You start, Mike. Any statement.
Any statement.
Could be anything.
Any sport?
Anything. I don't care.
Brooks Koepka is going to win the championship.
Just warming up. Give me another one.
Cleveland wins the AFC North. Ouch. Do both of them buzz? I assume you push the green one and it just buzzes as well. Is that what happened? What's the green one sound like? The green one even make a noise? No?
Can you hear it?
No, I don't hear anything. So the green one doesn't even work. So we got a buzzer and a green one that doesn't even work. There it goes. All right, there it is. I mean, that should have been the sound. So I'm gonna say the is the guy pushing the buttons biased against the Browns? All right, man. Well, we're at 50 minutes. I think we should go ahead and wrap it up here for this week. I would just like to point out that we got more Eagles talk in one podcast than we've ever done about the Browns. So I don't want to hear it anymore.
I think that's a bullshit. that's a bullshit statement.
Oh, there is one. There is one.
To talk about the Browns. Like you need to 30 minutes into Browns discussion every week.
Well, just like ESPN, you're going to talk about the teams that are projected to do well. No one wants to talk about 7-win football teams. We want to talk about Super Bowl contenders, which your Cleveland Browns, top 10 quarterback, top 3 running game, top 2 offensive line.
Top 10. Baker Mayfield will be
Hold
a
on,
top 10
top 10
quarterback.
quarterback?
Baker Mayfield will be a top 10 quarterback.
I got him at like 15, 16.
You're
Oh,
drunk.
he doesn't.
You've been in the
he
sun
doesn't
too long.
need a top 10 quarterback. All he needs to do is be okay. And just not turn the ball over. I hate the phrase game manager because it denotes like a less than, or like, oh, he's a game manager. That means he's kind of like sucky. But game managers, that's an important skill. If Baker Mayfield lets the game come to him and doesn't try to play hero ball, I think the Browns will be better off for that. I really do. He doesn't need to scramble around and make the crazy throws across the field. All this, if he just manages the game, and like I said, it's usually a negative denotation or whatever. Yep. But I really don't feel like it is, because if I'm the coach, I just say, look, just take it easy. The running game's going to carry you, and the defense will be there. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy. Don't turn the ball over, and they can win some games. I really, Now, I think the Browns have it tough because Baltimore's in their division, and even though, Chris, I know you hate Pittsburgh and all that, and you should, but I don't think they're going to be terrible, especially with that Harris. They got that new running back out of Alabama, and I think they're going to just feed him, and they're going to try to control the clock. And with Roethlisberger, as much as I don't like him, I think he's going to be decent, Now, Cincinnati could be improved too, so they might steal a game here and there. So you might be in some trouble. I mean, you're looking at like 8-9 or something.
I think you guys have got a little too much sun.
They had a coach last year, so they didn't have a book on the coach. Now they got a book on the coach. So you're looking basement.
I think you guys have been out in the sun too long. I'm going to go ahead and end it there because you guys have stopped making points or just ragging on the Browns, the most complete team in the NFL. And can I get a bell for that? Can I get? Oh, there's the buzzer again. All right. Anyway, we're trying to be professional and keep this under an hour. So we're going to wrap it up there because you guys are no longer making points. We talked about the Eagles a lot. More airtime than they deserve.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, man. It's been a pleasure. And next time I'm in Orlando, you just got to leave work early, man. Let's go.
Well, yeah, just give me more of a heads up than, hey, I'm already at Lake Mary and we can make something happen. Catch you guys next. I'll catch you guys next time.
All right.
Well, everybody, that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks for listening. Here's a random weekly fun fact for you. Sit down, LaDainian Tomlinson. The best fantasy football season ever belongs to George Blanda of the 1961 Houston Oilers. Blanda, who played quarterback for the Oilers, threw for 3,300 passing yards and an additional 36 touchdowns. But what helped his cause? The fact that he was also their starting kicker, where he chipped in 16 field goals, 2 of which were over 50 yards, and 64 extra points. This was good for a blistering 26.5 points per game in non-PPR.